was loud. And if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Can we have a motion to accept tonight's agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So now we'll move on to our district updates. Dr. Harrison, over to you.
So good evening, everyone. It is great to see you, and it is great to be here in the CPR this evening. Obviously, we are facing some new challenges as we've had our first positive COVID case in the school district this year. Certainly, I am thankful at this time that thus far all of the testing results have come back, and it's still just the single individual, patient 0, as Department of Health would refer to him or her. And we have had no further evidence of spread. We took the initial steps to close school necessarily, which was for Friday and Monday to be able to do the necessary work for Department of Health to begin to launch their communications and then to assess our ability to reopen. And that assessment, we take a look at it from a couple different lenses. First and foremost, we look at it from the health and safety perspective for our students and our staff. And then the second lens by which we review our ability to reopen is operationally. I would say that while the Department of Health initially was extremely responsive, and I want to commend everybody that worked with me, Dr. Cantor, and the whole team, and all their incredible work and following all the protocols that we've established in the school district, and partnering with the Department of Health, our wonderful school physician, Dr. Huff, to take those important first steps. On Thursday night, when we completed all of the necessary reporting with the Department of Health, they had assured us that they were going to initiate their contact tracing on Friday, and they expected it to be completed by Friday night. That was an important piece of information that we did share with our parent community. So wanting to be the small town district that we are and to really respect the partnerships that we have with our faculty, staff, and our parent community, we had staff reach out to all parents and all staff members that were to be considered direct contacts with the individual that had tested positive. And we conveyed to them that they would receive the communication by Friday. Friday, unfortunately, came and went, and those communications from the contact tracers did not happen. I spent several hours on Saturday communicating with Department of Health, both at the county and state level, trying to figure out what had happened. What we did learn through this process was that there was an error on the state side in the Department of Health, that while Irvington had fulfilled all of its responsibilities with respect to providing contact information for the contact tracers, the information was never released from the state's database to the actual contact tracers themselves. This led to the delays, and calls did not begin, from my understanding, until Sunday. So that led to layers of anxiety and frustration for our parent and staff community, and for that I certainly extend my apologies. But those calls did begin to happen. We spent much of our time through the weekend and initially on Monday beginning to look at how we would staff our school, understanding that we knew we would have 13 staff members out, 7 teachers and 6 support staff members. And we're developing plans on how we could operate school once we felt it was safe to reopen, and anticipating that we would be able to reopen on Tuesday, today, with those individuals, which amounted to about 41 students, and then again 13 staff members quarantined to home and participating in distance learning. However, what became abundantly clear is that we were going to have challenges being able to safely lead our schools, to be able to operate our schools with supervision for every single class of students, to be able to provide teachers the necessary support and breaks in their day that they needed. And so we were working through a variety of different scenarios, trying to come up with the best possible plan. Unfortunately, at the same time, we had other staff absences that began to surface, not related to this COVID case. And that led to the necessity for us to have to close school for a longer duration of time. In fact, we had 19 staff absences, or about 20% of our staff at Dow's Lane was absent today. We simply could not operate the building in a safe manner. And we certainly worry about not only the health and safety of all of our staff members and our students, but the quality of the learning experience that we would be able to provide. So frankly, when we sat there and looked at the operational needs, the decision became very clear to us, and that we needed to extend the closure for the entire 14 days that would provide the necessary quarantine, but would also allow us to bring our staff back up to an acceptable level where we could safely operate school and deliver the high quality learning experiences that our children deserve. While I know that this has provided some hardship for many families in our community, I do want to acknowledge questions and concerns that could be present in the community with regard to the district's planning. I would want to say that we have comprehensive plans in place that enabled us to respond as we had, and to be able to look at staffing in a variety of different ways to plan to reopen. However, where the challenges have surfaced is that we are unable to secure adequate number of substitutes who are willing to work during the pandemic. Therefore, we do not have a reliable group of subs that we can call in to be able to support in delivering instruction and supervising our children. We have led interviews for substitutes and substitute monitors and permanent monitors for the last 2 months. Employing numerous folks. However, it is a challenge to get folks to work during this difficult time and at the rate by which we're able to pay them. So we are hopeful that when we move forward, we look at when and or if other scenarios similar to this develop in our school community, that we will have fewer staff members that will need to be quarantined, and that we will continue to expand our pool of substitutes so that we are able to keep our schools open. So again, my apologies to those that have been inconvenienced. And again, I want to give my thanks to everyone for their understanding, to our students and staff for the resilience that they continue to demonstrate through these difficult times. Some exciting things to report that we have begun our high school athletics season. Just in the past week, tryouts and practices have begun, and competitions will begin in the coming days. However, with that excitement, there's always some disappointing news, it seems, during these times. First and foremost, there is going to be a limitation on spectators, and it is really going to be closely monitored. Just last night, Section 1 made its determination regarding spectators and attendance at sporting events. The rule will be that only home spectators will be able to attend an event, and those home spectators will be limited to 2 per student athlete who will be competing in the game or match. We will not be able to have visiting fans attend games. So for example, if our boys soccer team or our girls soccer team was to be playing in Ardsley, only Ardsley fans, and 2 per player, would be able to watch the game, and Irvington parents would not be able to go and watch their child compete. So that is highly disappointing, but it is all done with the health and safety of our students and our school communities in mind, and wanting to create an atmosphere that is manageable for each individual host school district. Additionally, this would be homecoming week coming up here, and we are clearly not going to be able to have the typical homecoming celebrations that we've enjoyed in the past, ranging from a parade and pep rallies to large crowds with games under the lights. So unfortunately, we're going to miss that special part of the week, but we're going to do what we can to provide great school experiences and to build school spirit across the district with a series of events, in particular at the campus. And we'll look forward to having a bigger and better than ever homecoming event next year. Finally, I do want to share that I was very proud a week ago to be able to share with the school community that Dow's Lane had earned the National Blue Ribbon School recognition, which is an amazing honor for the staff and our school community. When you step back and you think about what is a really incredibly arduous process where our staff, and I want to give note and thanks to Dr. Cantor for all of her hard work in putting together a comprehensive application, an application that could have only been completed following the nomination by the New York State Education Department for exemplary high student achievement. Following the State Education Department's nomination, the completion of our application, it had to go before a panel with the federal DOE. And just a few days prior to our announcement, we learned for certain that Dow's Lane was going to be recognized. That announcement, of course, was made on the 23rd. So we're very proud to add Dow's as our third school in the district that has been named a National School of Excellence. Dow's joins the middle school and high school as well. So we look forward to, we're getting some banners printed and a nice emblem will be put on each of the schools to recognize this great accomplishment. So kudos to everyone involved. Congratulations to our students, our parents, Board of Education, of course, our amazing teachers and our super principal for this much deserved recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Just before we move on to our committee reports, just want to remind everyone that there are 2 public comment periods. We'll take public comments after the committee report. So if you do have a comment, please hold it for a couple minutes, but then put your name and address in the Q&A feature, and then you'll be recognized to make your comment. We'll also have a comment period after the audit report. I'm going to go out on a limb and say my guess is none of you in the audience are going to have questions related to the audit. So to the extent you have questions or comments, you can ask them beforehand. So with that, we'll move on to our committee reports. Is there a representative of the Communications Committee to provide an update, please?
I'd be happy to do that. We met last week. It's Maura Geddes, Erin Bernstein, and myself with the superintendent, Dr. Harrison. We talked a lot about getting the app up and running in addition to the Google survey, and we talked about those difficulties. I think that we're making progress on that. And we also discussed some communication framework issues relevant to the entire school district that we will be discussing later on, I think, during the summer. But most importantly, and I think really linked to the really excellent contact tracing activities that were engaged in by the school district at Dow's Lane starting on Thursday last week, we are in the process of creating a new landing space on the website that will be on the home page that will be more of a constantly updated, focused health area that people in the community and the school community can go to get those specific questions answered. All those materials are in our reopening area, but this will pull those out and give us a place that is really focused on the health questions that are at the forefront of many people's minds during these days.
Thank you. And I think, Dr. Harrison, you were going to provide an update on the most recent CAB meeting?
Yeah, it was great to have our first CAB meeting of this school year. Again, it was like so many others, a virtual meeting. a wonderful opportunity to be able to connect with our students as we launch the new school year. We're looking forward to our continued collaboration with our students and our partners in the village to be able to support the needs of our young people and to be able to truly try to lead some change to make sure that our students are all leading positive, healthy lifestyles. CAB is going through a little bit of a transition at this time. Allison Felix and Tanya Hunt, who so capably led CAB for the past, I want to say 7 years, are phasing out of their role. And during this period of transition before the mayor and the village name new directors of CAB, we're pleased to be working with Joe Archino, our outstanding Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, and Joe will be leading the charge with us. We're currently planning not only for our upcoming meetings, but there's a tremendous speaker series that is going to be shared with the entire school community. There's been information that we've pushed out in district communications, and IASC has sent out as well. So we were looking forward to those very informative educational experiences for our students and our staff and parent community. We're also making plans for one of the follow-up drug and alcohol surveys that were required to administer as a part of the grant that funds all of the work associated with IASC. So we're looking to plan that survey during the month of November. So we're looking forward to another CAB meeting that's coming up in the very near future to engage with our student leaders who surely are going to have a great impact on the Irvington school community.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. I think we also have a Westchester Putnam School Board Association update. Dave, are you able to provide an update on that?
Yes, I am. In fact, just give me 1 second. I wanted to. It was a WSPBA vote of confidence on certain issues. Pull it up. Let's see, 1 sec. Somebody else wants to go in front of me, it's fine.
I'll just jump in. I was at the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association meeting last night on Zoom. It was they have an advocacy committee which meets regularly, particularly in the late winter and into the budget season. And typically they're looking for trying to advocate at the state level for improved funding around our regional cost, which is higher than other areas, and also around equity. Obviously, with the fiscal crisis as a consequence of the pandemic, the advocacy committee is looking more towards a focus on reducing red tape and some unfunded mandates. There's many requirements that the state has for districts to comply with, many well-meaning and useful, but some of them may be problematic or costly. And so on that front, Carol, we're reaching out to business officers to provide suggested mandates that we might look at. So, perhaps going forward, if you want to circle back and send me some suggestions, or we could talk about it, I can bring those back to West Putt Advocacy Committee in terms of what we'll go to state legislators asking for them to consider. Since, they'll just say we don't have the money. If we ask for money, we're hoping to reduce some of the things that cause challenges for you and for the district instead when we meet with legislators. And then obviously there's a lot of worry around whether at the federal level there will be relief provided. And there have been letter writing campaigns that go to our state legislators, our federal, for Schumer and Gillibrand and Nita Lowey, our congresswoman. But they're trying to think of other novel ways to try and convince the federal government to provide that really urgent relief that districts need. We're seeing in news articles that districts are under a lot of pressure as they see potential loss of state aid because of this crisis. And then finally, there's also discussion about, as our approach as districts approaches to responding to COVID. Our district, other districts learn lessons about what's been working and how to keep improving their relationship with the Department of Health. So there was interest in connecting with our regional superintendents organization about opportunities to continue to evolve and improve the district response. And to that end, there's also a weekly meeting that WestPUT holds. The Westchester Putnam School Boards Association is for short called WestPUT, and which district board presidents compare notes about the ongoing circumstances of how districts are responding to COVID. So I think,
thanks, Mike. I can take it from here. I found
yeah.
what I was looking
Good.
for.
Over to you.
Thank you. So yeah, there was a series of resolutions that were put forth before the WPSBA Advocacy Committee, and I just wanted to update the board and the audience on those particular resolutions because a few of them were things that we discussed frequently. One of them is really important. It's about whether Resolution 13, whether NYSBA supports legislation to authorize bidirectional communication between New York school districts and the New York Immunization Information System to allow for the efficient query and transfer of student immunization data. So the WPSBA advocacy group did not reach a decision on that particular piece, so let's look forward to some further news there. As well, there was Resolution 23, which creates a process for tenure review and renewal occurring every 5 years throughout the career of all tenured public school employees. The WPSBA group supports this concept of renewable tenure and recommends that a resolution to that end be in NYSBA's resolution packet. Those were the two most prominent ones that I wanted to just bring forth to everybody and bring to everybody's attention. So thank you.
Thank you. So at this point now we'll move on to our community comment portion. So if there are any members of the community that have a comment, you can put your name and address in the Q&A and you'll be recognized. So we'll give everyone just a minute to see if there's any further Q&A. Well, seeing no one come forward with name and address looking to make any comments, we'll move on at this point and move on to the presentation from our auditor. But to the extent there are further comments, there'll be another period after the auditor's presentation. So at this time, can we promote Tim Doyle from our auditor to give our audit presentation, please?
While Mr. Doyle's being promoted to be able to speak, I would like to invite Carol, who is our Assistant Superintendent for Business, to be able to provide an overview of the auditing process and the role that our colleague, Evan Gross, who has joined us tonight, plays in that critical process. So, Carol?
Good evening, everybody. The audit process is like basically almost a year-long process because everything we do in the business office we know is going to be audited at some point. It needs to be put in the correct location in terms of our books. We make sure we have the correct receipts, correct backup for every expenditure, every receipt. So it's really a year-long process. Evan Gross is our treasurer. He's seated to my right over here, and he does the bulk of that work for the district with me just having the oversight for it as well. And come the summer, we close our books. We look at all of the money that's expended, all of the receipts. We look at what else is due. That becomes an accounts receivable. What else might need to be paid becomes an accounts payable. We put that all together, and the auditors then start to ask for this data, that data, and they start reviewing and sampling all of our different cash receipts, cash expenditures, everything. So we provide all that detail. They come in person. This year they also did some of it remotely via transfer of data. So it was a combination. And that takes us a good number of weeks in the summer. At that point, the auditors then work to put everything together in what we call our financial statements that is presented tonight to the audit committee and then fully to the community it'll be placed on our website tomorrow. So that's the process. It is pretty intensive. I do give a lot of credit to Evan Gross, who is our treasurer, who does the bulk of the work, as I said before. And I'll now turn it over to Tim Doyle, who is a partner at Bonadillo and Company, who leads our audit and puts together our financial statements.
Okay, so Tim, I can see that you've joined us. Are you able to turn your video on? There you go.
Yes, I think it was being restricted until now, but all set.
So the floor is yours, Tim, to present the overview of this year's audit.
Thank you. Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the team at Irvington for helping us with the audit, being well prepared in a very unusual year. As mentioned, it was done through a combination of remote as well as live auditing. And again, we appreciate the efforts to get to this point so that you can still meet your state deadline with all the other things that you're dealing with. So again, thank you. We reviewed with the audit committee in depth the audit reports and the findings in the audit reports, or I should say the opinions in the audit reports. We issued 2 separate reports this year for you, your basic financial statements, as well as your extra classroom activities. And we'll go over each. So the basic financial statement audit has 2 auditors' reports included in it. The first is our opinion on those financial statements. So the opinion covers your statements as well as the related footnotes. We issued an unmodified auditor's opinion on those statements, meaning that we obtained sufficient audit evidence to support the numbers in those statements and the disclosures in your footnotes. That is a highest level of opinion that an auditor can give you on your financial statements. And again, it was an unmodified opinion, which is the same as you had in the previous year. Also included in that packet is a governmental auditing standards report. This report requires that we as auditors gain an understanding and test your internal controls over financial reporting. And we're required to report if any of those controls had material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that would delay your efforts to find either a material fraud or error in your financial statements. We're happy to note there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in those controls. The second area of that report is your compliance with laws, regulations, and grant contracts, whereby non-compliance could lead to a material financial statement issue. There were no such non-compliance noted within our audit. So this report, the basic financial statement opinion, as well as the governmental auditing standards, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and an unmodified opinion on your report. Those are the same as you've had in recent years. And again, I will reiterate that the unmodified opinion on those statements is the highest level of assurance that an auditor can give you. We also issued your extra classroom financial statements. Those are issued on the cash basis as prescribed by the New York State Education Department. It's a separate audit of the extra classroom activities. And as part of that audit, we reviewed a sample of transactions as well as analytic procedures on each of the clubs, and also reviewing your bank statements supporting those. We looked at the controls as well as the resulting balances. We did issue what's known as a qualified opinion on those statements, which is consistent with prior years and consistent with all of the districts we see throughout the state. The qualification is for completeness of receipts, and the nature of extra classroom activities with many cash-based fundraising activities on multiple sites lends greater risk towards you not potentially receiving all the funds that were collected. So our opinion states that other than amounts that may have been received before the treasurer's office, we're able to issue a clean opinion on what you received. However, we issued a qualified opinion on completeness to just note that neither the district nor your auditor could determine that everything that was received, potentially in cash, was remitted to your central treasurer. Again, this is, while it is a qualification, very standard in school districts all throughout New York State and consistent with what you've had in prior years. Other than that qualification, we noted no issues in the extra classroom activities that we're required to report. So those are the two reports that we issued. There were no disagreements with management during the process, which we're required to report. Also, no differences of opinion in terms of standards being implemented. And the one final note I'll make before opening it up, if there are any questions, is that there were a few COVID-19 related things. We do have a footnote in your financial statement that talks about a minor, maybe not minor in terms of dollars, but in terms of your financial statements, 20% holdback on the state funds that you had to defer this year because of COVID-19 and the timing of those receipts. And then the other effect is you would have been required to implement GASB 84, which has you address certain things with your fiduciary activities in your financial statements. And the GASB board issued GASB 95 this year, delaying any of the new requirements. So that will be deferred to next year and those statements. So that's all I have in terms of my presentation, but again, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Tim. I know the trustees had a chance to review all of that in advance and ask questions to Ms. Stein and others, but are there any other trustee-related questions? I'm looking around the room. I see none. Going to the videotape, anyone who's participating virtually who has a question? Hearing none, so thank you, Tim, for that report. And again, thank you to Ms. Stein and her staff for, again, shepherding through this work. So with that, we'll now move on to our consent agenda. And are there any questions on tonight's consent agenda? So hearing none, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
I guess we can count Michael as the second.
So we'll have Michael, then Maura. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I'm sure Dr. Harrison will do the same as what I'm about to do, but I do want to thank some of our community partners for their very generous donations, both the PTSA and the IF for their donations towards the district's diversity and inclusion efforts. The donations are greatly appreciated and will go towards the important work that the district is undertaking this year. Also, I know we have a donation from the Booster Club of 500 masks for use by our student athletes, which I'm sure will help them to show their Irvington pride out on the field. And we thank also the PTSA for their donation for the Level Up Village virtual classroom as well.
Great. Thank you, Brian. In addition to extending my great appreciation to our partner organizations, the PTSA and IEF, whom we could not have the wonderful work that is going to really capture the minds and the spirit of our Irvington faculty and staff, and working with NYU on our equity and diversity initiative of this year. So thank you very, very much. The $40,000 that have come from both of those organizations will make a huge, huge difference in what will be certainly a difficult financial year. And also my thanks to the Booster Club for their support in providing the Irvington Bulldog branded face masks for our student athletes. I also want to welcome a number of new staff members to the Irvington family. First is a long-term leave replacement, John Gagilski, who is a substitute science teacher that'll be teaching at the high school. We also have some new school monitors that we are welcoming and school cleaners. I'm proud to welcome these folks to be a part of our team here in Irvington.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Thank you, Dr. Harrison, for that. We now move on to our second round of community comments. So now's the time if there's anyone else who'd like to make a comment. Again, please post your name and address in the Q&A feature in Zoom. So again, seeing none, our next meeting will be on October 20th at 7:30 here again in the CPR and for the community on Zoom. And can we get a motion to adjourn our meeting for an executive session to discuss the employment history of particular persons, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So
Aye.
we'll now adjourn.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
You have a good night.
Thank you.